Thanks to my son earning more than $5,000 a month, you get to enjoy this luxurious life without even lifting a finger. Being a stay-at-home wife must be so easy for you. You should be grateful to us." My mother-in-law's voice echoed through the living room. Again, no matter how much I tried, she never acknowledged my efforts. I had worked tirelessly to be accepted as a member of this family, but her words cut through me like a knife. It felt as though my efforts were invisible to everyone. The living room was filled with relatives chatting and laughing. Yet I was treated as if I didn't exist, while my mother-in-law's snide remarks kept coming. "You're a freeloader, living completely dependent on your working husband, just like a parasite," one relative teased. They repeated the word in jest, and the laughter grew louder. As I carried in the tea, the sound of their laughter reached my ears, and I felt my heart grow cold and still. I glanced at my husband, who smirked as he added his own remark. "Without me, you wouldn't be able to survive a single day on your own. You should thank me for everything I do for you." At that moment, something inside me snapped. The anger and sadness I had bottled up suddenly erupted in my chest. I calmly set the tea down on the table and looked around at my mother-in-law, husband, and the other relatives. Their faces were filled with laughter and smug satisfaction. I took a deep breath, steadied my resolve, and spoke quietly. "All right, if you think so poorly of me, then let's get a divorce." With those words, the laughter in the room came to an abrupt halt. The relatives stared at me in shock, and my mother-in-law froze, wide-eyed and speechless. "A divorce? You think you can survive on your own?" I opened my bag and calmly placed the completed divorce papers in the center of the table. The atmosphere in the rooms instantly froze. I looked back at my soon-to-be ex-husband calmly, holding his gaze. Then I reached into my bag once again and pulled out something they never expected. "I'm Monica, a 38-year-old stay-at-home wife. I may be managing a household now, but I used to work full-time, a lawyer. My parents both passed away when I was still in high school. From that moment on, I knew I had to rely solely on my own strength to survive. I had no family to lean on, no safe haven where I could rest. I had no choice but to push forward. After high school, I used the money my parents left me to enroll in law school. I was determined to earn my law degree before the money ran out. Failing wasn't an option. My hard work paid off, and I eventually became a successful and sharp attorney. But 10 years ago, my career took an unexpected turn. I was assigned a case defending Tom Harrison, a man falsely accused of embezzlement. I put my heart and soul into defending him, but unfortunately my efforts didn't pay off. That case forced me to confront my own powerlessness. No matter how hard you try, there are things you simply can't save. I knew in my mind that I couldn't win every single case that I tried, but the realization was devastating. I agonized over whether I should continue my path as a lawyer. In the end, I made the decision to resign. Looking back, that decision may have been the one that changed my life forever. Afterward, I transitioned to an office job and started living a more peaceful life. That's when I met Ryan, the man who would become my husband. Ryan was serious and calm. We worked in the same department, and I admired his meticulous approach to his work. He seemed to appreciate the back office work that I was in charge of, and constantly expressed his gratitude. After a while, we started dating and eventually got married. For the first few years of our marriage, I continued working. But when Ryan was promoted to manager, things changed. I'm going to work even harder now so that I can provide a comfortable life for the both of us. With my promotion, my salary alone should be more than enough. So I want you to stay home and manage the household. Honestly, I had some reservations about leaving my job, but since Ryan wanted it, I decided to resign. As a stay-at-home wife, I poured my energy into household chores. I focused on preparing nutritious meals, cleaning daily, and maintaining our home to perfection. At that time, I think Ryan appreciated my efforts. But as time passed, things began to change. As Ryan's work became busier and he started losing his sense of ease, his attitude toward me also grew colder. At first, it was just small, snide remarks. "Must be nice being a stay-at-home wife, huh? Just lounging around all day with nothing important to do." Every time he said things like that, I rebelled inside, though I stayed silent. But over time, even arguing back felt exhausting, so I just let it slide. I thought I was brushing it off, but each remark left a wound. No matter how hard I tried as a stay-at-home wife, I felt no one recognized my worth. That thought haunted me. I found myself wondering more and more often, what am I even doing here? My past traumas had also begun to weigh on me. The helplessness I felt during the Harrison case, the fear of opening up to anyone. But at the same time, a small part of me longed to trust someone again. It felt like fear and hope were constantly battling inside me. Even so, I couldn't bring myself to take the first step toward change, because I felt like I was trapped in a place with no escape. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't go on like this. As I continued my days as a stay-at-home wife, the loneliness inside me grew deeper and more overwhelming. One of the main reasons for my loneliness was my mother-in-law Margaret, who lived nearby. I had never liked Margaret. To be honest, I was utterly fed up with her constant jabs. Ever since I married Ryan, Margaret, who lived just a few blocks away, had been cold and dismissive toward me. When I went to introduce myself for the first time, her response was a curt, "Well, nice to meet you," and nothing more. From that moment on, it felt like she saw me as an enemy simply because I was her son's wife. Ever since then, Margaret seemed to make it her daily mission to throw snide remarks my way. Must be nice being a stay-at-home wife. You get to live comfortably off my son's hard work. Oh, still in your pajamas? Housewives sure have it easy. Even when I was cleaning, she couldn't resist making a comment. Do you really need to clean every day? You must have too much time on your hands. And if I was cooking, she had more to say. Oh, the same dish again? It's so obvious we're slacking off. You have more than enough time to spend cooking a variety of meals. At first, Ryan would step in and tell her to stop. Mom, stop saying things like that. Because of this, Margaret held back from saying anything too harsh. But over time, Ryan started sliding with Margaret and everything changed. Monica, were you napping again yesterday? I guess that's what all housewives do since they have nothing better to do. Your apron looks filthy. Are you even doing the laundry? If I tried to respond, Margaret would always have something sharp to say in return. Wow, that must be so tough. I guess housewives must get really stressed out with all the chores they have to do. Because of this, I stopped responding and just let her words wash over me. But each time, anger and humiliation churned inside me. Why do I have to put up with this? I knew arguing wouldn't change anything, which only made my frustration grow more unbearable. I started asking myself more and more, what am I even doing here? A few times a year, Margaret hosted family gatherings at her house. For me, these gatherings were nothing short of a nightmare. The relatives treated Margaret like a queen, showering her with endless flattery. Margaret, you're amazing. This family runs so smoothly because of you. And naturally, the target of their ridicule was always me. Monica, we're out of tea. Hurry and bring some more. Can you start bringing out the next set of plates? Without a moment to rest, I went back and forth between the kitchen and the living room, only to hear Margaret's voice again. Dear, you're a stay-at-home wife. This is the least you can do. Her words drew chuckles from the relatives. My, you're so slow, Monica. How long does it take to make a simple pot of tea? Perhaps you've become too used to doing nothing all day at home. Maybe moving a bit would do you some good. Her words were merciless, as if designed solely to corner me. The relatives didn't step in to help me. Instead, they joined Margaret in turning me into a laughingstock. Monica, you're so clumsy. Could you clean this up for me? Oh, Margaret, isn't that too much to ask poor Monica? Not at all. A housewife should be able to handle this with her eyes closed. Every time, their laughter pierced my ears. Each word felt like a needle stabbing into my heart, making it unbearable to remain in that room. I felt as if I had become invisible. No one saw me as a person. My sense of purpose and meaning in being there seemed to dissolve entirely. Loneliness and despair tightened around my chest, leaving me breathless. What am I even doing in this house? Does my presence here even hold any meaning? The only solace I found was in Margaret's younger brother, George, my husband's uncle. George always looked out for me. He stood up for me when I was insulted and always listened to my concerns with genuine attention. I had told George about my past career as a lawyer. In fact, he had been the president of the company involved in the embezzlement case I last handled. He had attended the trial and remembered seeing me in action. With him, I found it easy to speak openly and honestly. He was the only person I confided in about considering divorce. You don't have to push yourself, you know. His gentle words of encouragement saved me in ways I couldn't fully articulate. Quietly, I began preparing for divorce. I documented my husband's misconduct and filled out the divorce papers. I carried the signed papers with me like a talisman of hope. During a casual conversation with George, the topic of my savings from my time as a lawyer came up. I managed to save quite a bit back then. I meant it as a light-hearted comment, but I didn't miss the sudden, sharp glint in George's eyes. Although uneasy, I continued the conversation. Of course, I'd never tell anyone where I keep my account books. I laughed it off, and George quickly returned to his usual, easygoing smile. It was just a fleeting moment, but something about it left a nagging feeling in my chest. Neither my husband nor Margaret knew about my career as a lawyer or my savings. I kept it a secret to avoid any trouble if someone decided to target my assets. I believed George to be trustworthy and discreet. Yet every time I relied on his kindness, a faint shadow of doubt crept into my mind. That shadow took on a more tangible form a few weeks later. One day when I returned home, I found my apartment had been ransacked. Drawers had been pulled open and papers were scattered everywhere. What is this? Panicked, I searched for my account books, but they were nowhere to be found. Luckily, I had one account book with me while I was out, and it remained safe. I immediately called the police and had them examine the scene. This appears to have been a targeted burglary. I'd recommend changing your locks and taking additional precautions. I followed their advice and changed my locks, but the unease lingered. I decided to consult George. So, someone broke into my apartment and it seems like they were after my bank cards. I'm really scared. That's terrible. Changing the locks is a good start, but I could hold onto your bank account books for safekeeping if you like. His offer eased my mind a little, but I still hesitated to hand over my account books. In that case, why not move somewhere with better security? It'll give you peace of mind. His suggestion made sense, so I decided to move to a highly secure apartment complex. However, what happened next would shake the foundation of my trust in him. One evening, as I returned to my new apartment, I felt someone's eyes on me. When I turned around, I saw a man standing a short distance away. He was staring intently at my apartment building. Who's that? My heart began to race with unease, but I decided to follow him. The man was restless, frequently glancing around nervously. Eventually, he entered a building I recognized. It was George's office building. A sensation like something breaking apart spread through my chest. Was George betraying me? My whole body shook as I reached a conclusion I didn't want to face. Determined to uncover the truth, I resolved to act. I tried to contact George, but no matter how many times I called, he didn't answer. At first, I told myself, he must be busy. But as the days passed without any response, a gnawing unease began to grip on my chest. Then one day, an unfamiliar woman came to my door. When I saw her through the video monitor, I realized that it was someone I had met only once before, many years ago. Lisa? She was Lisa Harrison, the wife of Tom Harrison, the defendant in the embezzlement case I once handled. I let her in right away, curious about why she was here after all this time. Her face showed signs of exhaustion and tension, but her eyes sparkled with determination. It's been a long time, Monica. She looked around the room uneasily before taking a seat. Is something wrong? I asked quietly, studying her expression. She took a deep breath and slowly began to speak. I've been investigating the case, believing in my husband's innocence all this time. Her words made me gasp. Her voice carried the weight of many long years. And I've uncovered something important. There's something I absolutely must tell you. Her voice didn't tremble, but there was a cautious undertone. Her demeanor made my unease grow. Information? I couldn't help but ask, bracing myself for what was to come. She briefly lowered her gaze before looking directly at me again. Her eyes held a determined intensity. What I'm about to tell you is extremely important. Her calm tone thickened the tension in the room. At that moment, my heart skipped a beat. Fear of the unknown and an urgent need to know the truth collided within me. Please, go ahead. I steeled myself and spoke. Lisa took a deep breath and opened her mouth to speak. The mastermind behind the embezzlement case is George. Her words hit me like a tidal wave, overturning my world. I was left speechless. George? That can't be true. Lisa continued calmly. George has been targeting your assets. It felt like all the blood in my body had drained away. No, that can't be true. I muttered the words, but Lisa's tone didn't waver. I have evidence. Please listen to this. Lisa handed me a small recording device. With trembling hands, I took it. Then I pressed play. The moment I heard the voice coming from the recorder, my heart nearly stopped. I played nice with Monica to gain her trust. The assets are mine now. This is the endgame. The cold voice echoed through the room, piercing me like a dagger. As for the embezzlement case, I just pinned it all on Tom. He was the perfect scapegoat. As the recording ended, my hands trembled and I placed the device back on the table. My knees buckled and I collapsed to the floor. It was all a lie? It felt as if everything I had believed in had crumbled in an instant. The despair swirling in my heart brought my past traumas vividly to the surface, and yet amidst it all, I felt a quiet anger begin to bloom. Monica, are you okay? Lisa gently placed her hand on my shoulder, speaking softly. Yes, thank you, but I think I need a little time. I could hear the tremor in my own voice, but I couldn't say anything more. Her kindness was a balm, but within me a new resolve began to form. I started to think about how to corner George. To do so, I needed more evidence. I consulted the police, securing their help in tracking his movements while conducting my own investigation. As I dug deeper, previously unnoticed clues began to surface. It turned out George had been involved in multiple past disputes. While they had been cleverly concealed, a shadow of suspicion had always followed him. One particularly glaring issue involved several unresolved financial disputes. Using that information, I reached out to his former colleagues and associates. George? He was smooth talking, but there was always something shady about him. As I collected their testimonies, George's hidden actions gradually came to light. At the same time, I uncovered the subtle tactics he had used to get close to me. Though his methods were cunning and calculated, they only strengthened my resolve. At last, I finalized my plan to bring George down. I summoned him under circumstances where he was least likely to suspect anything. The confrontation with George was arranged at a safe cafe where the police could stay nearby. When he arrived, I masked my nerves with a calm demeanor, suppressing the tension swirling inside me. Hey, Monica, what's this about, calling me out of the blue like this? George, there's something I need to discuss with you. George flashed a friendly smile, but his eyes betrayed a calculating glint, as if trying to gauge my intentions. Lately, a lot has been happening, and honestly, it's made me a little scared. That's rough. Is there anything I can help with? His words sounded kind, but I could see through the facade to his true intent. Actually, it seems someone tried to steal my bank book again. I don't know what to do. At those words, I noticed a flicker of unease flash through George's eyes. That sounds scary. Are you keeping it in a secure place? Yes, but since it's not the first time, honestly, I don't feel safe anymore. In that case, why don't I hold on to it for you? I'll keep it in a proper safe. At his suggestion, I deliberately showed a hint of hesitation. That would help, but are you sure it's not a bother? Oh, not at all. I think it's the least I can do. At that moment, I was certain George's scheme had fully surfaced. I pulled out a locked case from my bag and placed it on the table. It's in here. I bought a new locked case for it. As George's gaze shifted to the case, I gave the signal. The police, who had been waiting nearby, immediately entered the scene. George Smith, there's no way out for you now. George's face showed a brief flash of shock before it twisted into anger. You set me up. He lunged toward me, but the officers quickly restrained him. You framed Tom for embezzlement, and you targeted my assets. Everything was your doing, wasn't it? All I wanted was money. People betray you, but money doesn't. His broken screams echoed throughout the cafe. As George was escorted away by the police, I took a deep breath. So, it's finally over. A sense of liberation and faint emptiness swirled in my chest. Later, George faced trial and ultimately confessed to his crimes. His countless betrayals were revealed, and the court handed down a severe sentence. For me, this marked the end of a painful chapter in my life. A few weeks later, after George's arrest, I found myself settling into a quiet and peaceful new life. My new apartment boasted a bright living room and a stunning view of the city from its windows. I personalized the space with lush greenery and pieces of artwork that reflected my style. Drinking coffee by the window, bathed in the morning sunlight, became my little daily joy. This is my fresh start. I returned to work, rekindling the passion I once had for my career. Each time I stood in court, I felt my strength and confidence grow. Monica, could you take on this case as well? We'd really value your expertise. Of course, I'll give it my all. I maintained a warm friendship with the Harrisons and occasionally enjoyed meals with them. Oh, Monica, I can't thank you enough. We wouldn't have been saved without you. You'll always be a cherished friend to us. Seeing their smiles reassured me that my decisions had been the right ones. Meanwhile, Ryan and Margaret were navigating very different paths in their lives. The scandal had ruined their reputation in the community, leaving them in a difficult situation. Unable to endure the cold stares of those around her, Margaret moved to a small town in the suburbs. If I could go back, I'd change everything. She called me a few times to apologize, but I simply listened quietly. Margaret, your apology means little to me at this point. Ryan, too, had to confront his own shortcomings in the aftermath of the incident. Unable to manage household chores, he struggled to rebuild his life and lived in solitude. Monica, can we try again? I was wrong. Ryan, there's no place for you in my life anymore. His voice was laced with regret, but I didn't look back. By cutting ties with the past, I was finally able to truly value myself. I resumed painting as a new hobby and even began showcasing my work at local art events. Monica, this piece is absolutely stunning. Thank you. I was able to create this because I finally started enjoying my time. Meeting new friends became another treasured part of my life. One morning, as sunlight poured through the window and I sipped my coffee, a thought crossed my mind. The past can't be changed, but the future is mine to create. The words resonated deeply within me, giving me the courage to take the next step forward. From now on, I would live for my own happiness. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew I wouldn't waver again.